Let me grab my notes. I'm excited to kind of wrap up this week in terms of like how we structure, how to structure your day and your week to really stay focused and be efficient. And if you don't remember, tomorrow I'm actually going to be hot seated by my assistant coach, Emma. So that's going to be really cool. You don't want to miss that. Okay, so as I'm pulling up my notes, because everything got shut down, type in the comments, what is one thing that you struggle with? Like just specifically in a very practical way, what's one thing that you struggle with when it comes to your schedule? Or getting things done or prioritizing. So if you're watching, so those of you watching live now, there's a few of you, please be so kind as to assist me on this so that I can see exactly where it is that you struggle the most with this. So drop something in the comments. I'll give you a couple of seconds or, like 20 seconds because there's typically a delay. And I'm going to share with you what I do, but I really want to land it for you to see where you might be missing an opportunity in your own approach. Okay. So I remember, I'll just start with this. There was a time in my life where, and if you can relate to this, let me know, where I was very task oriented. And so I had a long list, a to-do list almost all the time. And it was actually like a joke in my family where I was kind of teased. I mean, I was like this since a teenager, where I would make these long lists. And then I remember my Aunt Marianne saying one time that she remembers me making a list, a note. One of my notes that she found in her house was a reminder for me to look at my list, right? So I had a long to-do list and then I had a note somewhere in her house. I was staying at her house in the summer or something like that to remind myself, it was like in the bedroom, to remind myself to go look at my to-do list. So obviously I was operating in this like hyper, like focused, I say focused, but we'll talk about how that's not really efficient focus. But I was operating out of this mentality of like, I've got to get all these things done and I better not forget. In fact, I'm going to write myself a note over here to remind myself to go and look at my list. So has anybody here, am I the only crazy one who's done anything like that? Okay, so Linda, owning your time. What do you mean specifically by that, right? Just give me a little more context. So what I've asked you guys to do is tell me exactly what it is you struggle with when it comes to your day and or your week and your overall goals. So what I'm going to talk about is how I structured now versus then when I operated off of a long to-do list. And if you're doing that now, believe me, there's a way more efficient way to do it. And without the frustration of seeing that there's like 4 or 5 things that you didn't get done, right? So either way, say you've got a long to-do list. Does anyone here like fall into this category of always having a long to-do list? Here's the problem with that. You have this long to-do list of like 10 plus things, right? And you're gonna fall into one or two categories. You're gonna fall into stress and disappointment because you don't get everything done on the list because like you've got too many things on there. And so then remember how I'm always talking about we train our mind for what to expect. And so if you continue to train yourself to expect yourself not to complete, right, to not be a finisher, to not get all those tasks done, then you're starting to train your brain to believe that that's how you operate. Okay, and so it sets up the expectation, it sets up the pattern. So you either fall into that on any given day with your long list, or you find yourself like completely stressed out because you're like, I'm going to get every single thing done on this list. What often happens when we're focused on too many things in a day is almost all of those things are done without any real commitment, right? So it's like you're just kind of half-assing it if you're lucky. You might be quarter assing it. So you're compromising quality to get a quantity of things done. Okay. And so there's a way more efficient way to do this. And it all begins with what we talked about 2 weeks ago. If you're new to the group, welcome. And if you are, go click the videos tab on the side and go back and look for the topics that talk about vision and purpose and all of that. So one of my clients said to me one point this week, something about this long to-do list that she always has and that she always gets it done, but at the expense of like being stressed out, at the expense of like, have you ever like gotten so like done so much in a day, but then at the end of the day, you feel like you haven't accomplished anything of like real value, right? It's like, damn, I was so busy today, but you don't have that feeling of accomplishment. It's because there wasn't anything that really moved the needle, right? So like you're here checking off all these tasks, but nothing is really moving the needle towards that bigger vision. And so it starts with going back to what is the bigger vision, that way up there, big, beautiful vision, which becomes your North Star. My clients and people who've done VIP days with me know that I get them really deep on, you know, what they stand for, what their vision and mission is. That becomes their North Star. And we put together a decision matrix based on that so that they are only focusing on things that move the needle towards that star. Now, here's the thing. It's typically a big vision, right? And so what's important to do is to reverse engineer that big vision so that you are on task with you know, things in the year, in the quarter, in the month, in the week, and in the day. So you've got your big vision, and that's what you're making your decisions based off of. When you are inspired and motivated by the bigger vision, and you've got the confidence and the clarity to know that you're moving in that direction, you don't, now listen to this, you don't then have the fearfulness that comes with making these long lists. Because that's where those long lists come from. When I think of myself back when I had those long lists, it was like the fear that I wasn't, like if I didn't do all these things, nothing was going to happen, right? It was like the fear of like, and that belief, that lone wolf belief of like, I've got to do everything myself. It's also most of the time, a false sense of actually doing something of importance. If you've ever read the book, The War of Art, it's like there's important things and there's, I forget what the other one is, but most people are focused on things that are not, urgent. Most people are focused on things that are not important for the bigger picture and the bigger vision. They're focused on all these urgent tasks, right? That make you feel like you're actually getting something done, when what you're in fact getting done really makes no big difference in your life. I mean, I remember times looking at my list and like, I only have 4 things on here. This is crazy. I need to also clean the bathroom, go to the store, you know, organize this, whatever it was. You end up putting all these urgent things on there, you know, and it has that urgent energy around it. When you're actually motivated and inspired by your bigger vision, your bigger goal, right? So bigger vision and the goals chunked down, then you have the confidence to know that you really only need to do 1 or 2 important things each day that will move the needle in that direction. So let me grab my notes really quickly because I had a couple things that I want to share with you that I do. Let's see. That will specifically support you. And I don't want to miss the piece. Okay. So yesterday we talked about morning rituals and how, you know, I used to have a really long one and now it's really kind of lasered in, like I can shift in any moment. So I don't need a long morning routine anymore, although I still prefer and do get up early because I like to have that time to myself to do whatever. But what has become most important to me is an evening ritual. And my evening ritual is very short as well. But what it looks like for my business, right? And if I wish I could turn, I have a huge desktop. I can't turn it around. But I have a big whiteboard in my office. This is my home office. By the way, I want to get a nice picture for back here, but I've been kind of looking at a bunch of different stuff. So anyway, I can't wait to like reveal the nice big wall that I'll have behind me soon enough. But anyway, inside of my office, I have a big whiteboard, and that whiteboard holds the one or two important things that I do each day. Okay, and then I have some post-it notes and like those big wall notes that are specific for whatever I'm working on. But as I'm looking over at my big whiteboard, I have my two important things for today that I put on there last night. So in the evening, as I'm wrapping up my day and seeing what I actually got accomplished and what gets to get accomplished to continue to move the needle forward, right now, my main focus this month, I have one main focus each month. This main focus this month is my new show, my online show, Not Born to Be Average, which is going to air at the end of the month. So everything that I'm focused on this month has to do with that. Now, there are other things that are going on, like I'm training my sales team. I have a new admin. All of these things are also going on. But my main focus is the summit, is this online show. And so that's what is on my whiteboard. I decide what my one or two important things are going to be the night before. I don't decide the morning of or the day of. And here's why. Because you can easily get sidetracked or pulled into other urgent things the next day when you don't have that focus set up the night before. Right? So if I didn't have that focus set up, I could come into my room, even if I had that morning time, I could come into my office and maybe I get sidetracked by email, or I get on here and do the Facebook Live, and then I end up playing around on Facebook afterwards. But you've got to manage your mind. And the way that you do that is by focusing on what is going to move the needle. So the night before, I decide and I put my two things on the board. So I know exactly what I'm doing after I do my Facebook Live. And I get my most important things done early. I get my most important things done first. The rest of the stuff, believe me, there is a ton of stuff that gets to get done or that has to get done. But I focus only on one or two things. And guess what happens? That leaves my mind clear. I don't walk around with any lists. It leaves my mind clear. So when those things are finished, I've got the clarity, I've got the space in my day and in my mind to then plug in the other things that get done. But I don't go into like anything else unless and until my two important things are done. Does that make sense? Is this piece supporting you? So number one is decide the night before what you're going to get done or focused on the next morning. That's what I do for my business. Okay. And then my evening routine, just for my personal self, is I read very just spiritual stuff, anything that really helps to put me in a frame of mind, relaxing, floods my mind with anything that's going to feed me with energy, right? Like not high energy. Although at one point I was reading the book by David Goggins, and I was reading that at night, and I was like, oh my God, I got to stop reading this at night because it's got me all ready to go. But typically I'll read something like about my parenting stuff or spiritual stuff that puts me in the energy of like gratitude, puts me in a relaxed state of mind. And then I go to sleep that way, right? So I do, my breathing, I do my meditation, I do my prayers. And I mean, that's really simple, right? That's what I do in the evening. I never take my phone into my room. There were times when I did that. Believe me, if you're using your phone as an alarm, it's a distraction. it's a distraction. My phone goes on the charger down in the little area on the other side of my kitchen, and it's done for the night. I don't see it again until the morning. Like I don't check email in the morning. I don't get on social media in the morning. Like I'm up for hours before I even do Facebook Live. Emails, all of that stuff comes later in the day. Right? And can you see how when you operate that way, you're not operating out of fear, right? There's this fear thing, like I'm going to miss something, or I've got to hurry up and reply right away. But when you stop operating like that, you allow space for your mind to really focus on what's important. What's important, because that's all that matters in terms of getting you to, that bigger goal, that bigger vision. It's when we allow ourselves to get pulled left and right by all these other little things that pop up that we end up diluting our energy and diluting our focus. And then we never really are able to get on path to the bigger vision. Okay, so the night before, your evening ritual is important. Now, the other thing I want to tell you that I do during the day, and my clients know about this, is I do power hours. My friend Sasha she does something called Get It Done days, where she'll take like a couple of days on her calendar, 3 or 4, more than a couple, maybe once a week, and she calls it Get It Done days. I call it content days. So throughout the week, you might block like a day. A lot of times for me, it's Friday, except this month, because I'm in a stretch with doing all my interviews and everything. I end up doing a little bit on Saturday, but typically I'll take a Friday as my content day. And that just means my day to really create content, emails, videos, things like that, and just be in a creative space where I'm not on email, I'm not on client calls or anything like that. And then throughout the day, I'll do little power hours, meaning sometimes I might only work 2 or 3 hours in a day. But when I have a focused power hour, when I'm like, I'm going to work from 5 to 6 a.m. or even 5 to 6 p.m., whatever works for you. There's no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong time of the day to work, but it's got to fit your lifestyle, your schedule. I don't like to work after my daughter gets home from school. I kind of wish they didn't get home so early, but that's just the way it is. So I'll have focused power hours. My client Sandra was here a couple of months ago, and we did a power hour. I brought her into my office to show her how we do a power hour. And she was like, oh my God, I got more done in this hour than on my own in a whole week. And that's because you commit to what's going to happen in that hour. Maybe it's something like you need to reach out to like 20 people or something, because you need to send out that many emails, because in this instance, we were inviting them to something. So it's like, that's what's going to happen. I get my whiteboard. I have 2 different whiteboards. I write, 20 spots on there, and then I fill them in as we do it. Look at what I have. I have an hour clock, right? And this is how I do my power hours. Now, I just got this a couple months ago. I didn't always, this is just cute, right? But I love it because it shows me that, time is passing by, right? But that's my hour tester. Now, sometimes the power hour will turn into 2 hours. But the reason I'm sharing the power hour model with you is because so many people will tell me, I don't have enough time. I've got kids, I've got another job, I've got this, I've got that. Guess what? If you're really laser focused and you can shut down your phone, you can shut down distractions, most of the time you only need an hour or 2. Can you let that sink in? Most of the time you only need an hour or 2, because what happens is the rest of the time you're typically wasting time. I mean, this is so true down to the fact that when I was homeschooling my daughter 1st and 2nd grade, we followed an online private school curriculum and everything. And they said the curriculum will only take about 2 hours a day. That's all that your child needs to learn is 2 hours a day. And by the way, when they're in full school, they're typically, the other hours are just being used with playing and things like that. It's not actually like, they don't even retain it for more longer times than that. And a lot of you, it's the same way. You don't retain information when you're working longer hours anyway. So maximize a power hour or 2 power hours. Okay. And then schedule days out of the week and month to get things done. You don't have to work traditionally 8-9 hours a day on your business in order to create a result. With that being said, it doesn't mean that when you're working on certain projects like I am right now, that you won't work a little bit longer. That's fine. But we're talking about like your just standard, your standard working days. Okay, so morning ritual, we talked about yesterday. Today, we talked about an evening ritual of just setting your 1 or 2 tasks the next day, and then blocking time, right? Block time on your schedule throughout the day or throughout the week or the month to get it done days, content days, power hours, right? And then you've got to also schedule downtime. You've got to schedule downtime. Being a high performer does not mean that you need to push all the time or burn out. You don't have to do that. Anyone who is a high performer, who is very driven, has done that at some point, right? Because like you do things a certain way until you know better. So I'm here to tell you, you don't, to get high performer results, it really comes from really maximizing your time. And where does that all begin? It begins with your mind, right? So track your hours, not your tasks, right? So it's not about, I got 20 things done. Track your hours. Like, what did I get done in those 3-4 hours sitting in front of my computer? A lot of times you'll find that you didn't get really anything of any significance done. So you've got to do whatever you got to do to get yourself into the mind frame of focus. With my daughter, when we used to do homeschooling, like, her mind is just can go everywhere, right? And she's a kid, so that's normal, but she's also very creative, so she starts to kind of get off track. So I would literally have us do like jumping jacks and, okay, let's get our focus brain going. And she would think that was so fun. So we would do jumping jacks, and then we would like do a little breathing thing. And then with her, we'd do like a 20-minute power hour, right? And then like we would get so much done that way. Or I'd take her for a hike, and while we were hiking, that's when we would do her spelling and her math, right? So you got to think outside the box. You got to think outside the box. Like, what is going to have you get really plugged in? A lot of my creative stuff comes like when I go and take a walk and I talk to myself out loud, because that helps me get the energy out. So you have got to get really resourceful. You hear this word a lot. My coach uses it a lot. It's like, get resourceful. Don't just sit and wait like, oh, I'm waiting for inspiration, or, I'm waiting to really feel motivated. No, you've got to create those moments. You've got to create those moments, right? Like when I move from one moment to the next, like from doing this to then, going with my daughter, or to having to, like, I'm working on my Get Set method. We're upgrading it and revising it and updating modules and all of that. When I go into that space, I've got to shake off the other energy that I had in my other project. Does that make sense? All of this is about like you interrupting whatever energy you're in and creating the next energy for the next hour, right? For the next block of time. So track your hours, don't track your tasks. Set your most important 1 or 2 things to do the very next day, and create little power hours or, get it done days in your schedule. You don't have to work all day long in order to get things accomplished. So I hope that supported you guys. I'm going to see if I can pop in and look at any questions that you have. Catherine, I do stuff and don't know what to do to move the knee. I can't see on my, let me see if I could see them on my phone. I struggle to know the next step and forget what I need to do. If you're forgetting what you need to do, that's because you are getting caught up in tasks. You're thinking that the more tasks you complete, the more efficient you are, and that's not it. So let's see what else. Set the intention of what you want to create. Exactly. Get resourceful. It's working for me. Awesome. Listen, guys, tomorrow I'm going to be hot seated. So you guys know I do a hot seat Friday. If you didn't see last week's hot seat, go look at that. It was a really beautiful session with Evram, and we went deep on some things that might support you. Tomorrow, my assistant coach, Emma, is coming on to hot seat me. I have no idea what she's going to ask me, but tune in. We'll see you tomorrow at 7 a.m. Pacific. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for joining me. Bye.